Hello, welcome back to the UK Squonkers YouTube. So, this is not really a review as such, it's just sort of an overthought on a few bits and bobs that I've got hold of this week. You know, initial impressions, niggles, things to watch out for, stuff like that. So, hopefully, this isn't going to take a massive amount of time, certainly not as long as reviewing each thing individually. I will get around to doing that, but for now, you know, I wanted to get something up on the channel for you guys to have a look at. So, first things first, late to the party. There's already many reviews out on the Lost Vape Halcyon. So, for those of you that don't know, it's a DNA 200 device, and it's powered by a LiPo. Okay, so these are a 900 mAh 3S LiPo battery. The main questions that always get asked for stuff like this is, what's the battery life like? You know, I don't really think that that's a fair question for any device, because it's going to change for every single person. It depends entirely on what build you put in here and what wattage you set it to. So generally speaking, I've been running this at around about sort of 70 watts, and in rotation with a few other devices. It's lasted me, you know, certainly until I get home to put it on charge. So I'm getting the best part of a day at, you know, at sort of 70 watts. But I say that is in rotation with other devices. So yeah, I mean, you're looking probably 3-4 hours of constant use, I guess, at that sort of wattage. Below 50 watts, I've tried running it down like the 30-40 watt mark, and I get much better battery life at that wattage, obviously. But that's the same with anything. I have started having a look around, and I believe that there may be a 1300 mAh 3S LiPo pack that will fit in there. Actually, it might be a 2P. If it's a 2P, that's going to limit your output wattage to 133 watts. It's basically the same as having two batteries in parallel, as opposed to having three batteries in series. So you will get slightly longer battery life out of that, but obviously you're limiting your wattage if, you know, going above 133 watts is your kind of thing. So overall, form factor, you know, yes, it's quite big. It's just ever so slightly larger, you know, thicker, and a touch taller than the Ham Squonk that I reviewed last time. That fits in my hand really nicely. This is just a bit too, just a tiny bit too big to be super comfortable, but it's not, you know, it's not a massive monstrosity of a device to hold. But like we covered last time, you know, I don't have dainty hands, so if you have slightly feminine hands, should we say, then yeah, it might be a bit too big for you. In terms of use and function, it does everything you'd expect a DNA 200 device to do. The eScribe software on this is quite nice. You can, you know, customize things, put your own themes on there. So if, like me, you're a bit of a geek when it comes to comic book stuff, you know, you can load up your own comic book themes, Star Wars themes, anything you can think of, really, using the eScribe software. It also enables you to monitor your vaping habits, and to change the way that the device functions, in as much as warm-up times on temperature control and sorts of things like that. I'll go into it in more detail when I cover this one by itself. But overall, for the price point, you know, I think it's a fantastic mod. The finish is a little bit sort of bright. It's a very, what is the process they use is bright anodizing, and it certainly does sort of fill that category. It is quite bright and shiny and sort of almost gaudy, I suppose. But then I did go for the, you know, Super Impreza Turbo Blue. If you've gone for silver, the silver ones look great in my opinion, and the black is black. Black looks good with everything. So yeah, the blue and the red for me are a little bit bright and shiny, but it's nice to have something a bit colourful in the collection. So that's 105 watts on the Hastur. Now again, this has been covered loads of times. I'll just do a very quick. So the Hastur is a little 2-post velocity style deck. So nice and easy to build your dual coils on. Please ignore the state of those coils. They were a quick throw in just to sort of get something working. Now, what you have is quite how good I can get this to show up for you. You see there's a black O-ring at the bottom there, and then there's a clear O-ring at the top. Now, that comes in the box. This O-ring at the bottom isn't black, it's one of these clear ones, and it is crap. I mean, you couldn't, the slightest knock and it would fall off. The whole thing would come off. Now, as far as the airflow control ring, that sits on the top one, and that one actually, isn't super tight, but it's tight enough that it doesn't move around all by itself. It puts some friction in there. Now, I raided through my box of spare O-rings, found something that fits. So now, it goes on with a nice click, and I can hold it by the Atty. You wouldn't have had a hope in hell of doing that with the original O-ring. It is absolutely crap. So if you're going to order a Hastur V2, I'd recommend you get yourself some spare O-rings and have a play with that, because it will annoy the crap out of you. The airflow system is simple enough. You've got these 2 big slots in the cap, and they match up with, see these grooved section in here. So the theory is that, obviously, depending on how far you turn this, depends on how much of that airflow channel is open. I say the theory, it's not the best system I've ever come across. The reason for that is that regardless of how small the entry point to that large channel is, it's still a large channel. So instead of having a small directed sort of airflow at your coil, you end up with quite a weak sort of wishy-washy airflow. I don't know if that's a great word to describe airflow, but whatever. For me, this RDA works best with some Larry coils pushing some decent power, which in all honesty is what it's designed for. It's not a flavour chasing atomizer in any way, shape or form. I'm sure you could spend a lot of time finding that perfect build to suit the airflow and everything else. For me, the easiest way with this is to just bang some big Larry coils in and turn the power up. That aside, it's a good vape, quite spitty, because there's absolutely nothing between your coils and your mouth. Basically, you've got a centimetre of wide open black plastic chuff tip. So yeah, it's not a flavour Atty, but you're going to get good flavour off of a low build, purely because of the fact that there isn't much room between the coil and your mouth. So it works. It's decent for the price. I can't knock it, to be honest with you. What? It's about 20 quid, something like that. It's bloody cheap for what is an authentic, atomizer. It's at that lower end of the scale, but you know what? If you like your airy builds and you like clouds, and you want something to put on a device like this, or the new 160 watt Dripbox, it's going to do great. On a mechanical squonker, an unregulated squonker, I think you need to be building sort of beyond the safe limit to really get the most out of it. So for that reason, I wouldn't recommend it for that. But I suppose with the right build, you could get it there. It's not a bad Atty by any means. Certainly not something I'm going to rush to get rid of. Would I buy 2? No. I'd just stick with the 1, thanks. I mean, don't get me wrong, my juice tastes great out of that. but I think that's more to do with the fact that it's pushing 105 watts, you know, than the atomizer itself. So for the money, give it a go. But if you're not, you know, you're not the kind of person that likes to put out a reasonable amount of vapor, I say reasonable, slightly excessive for most of you, I guess. Yeah, it's probably not one for you. So anyway, moving on. The next thing that I'm going to look at is the Halcyon's competition, basically. This is the Kangertech Dripbox 160. Now, they still market these as starter kits, which kind of irritates me because it's not a starter kit. You wouldn't get your Nan one of these to get her off the SIGs. It's a big device, about the same sort of size as the Rillo RX200 or DNA 200. I've got this in the black finish. Stainless steel, in my opinion, does look a bit classier. The black one was sort of marketed with black buttons and comes with red, which, you know, they're a bit gaudy, but it does what it says on the tin, basically. So you've got Kangerzone 160 watt board. This is running at 160 watts. Juice bottle system is as simple as the original Dripbox. So you've got your little magnet there, which covers your bottle. Grab the bottle, pull it out the bottom, and you've got that lovely little stopper system there. So there's no messing around with tubes or anything like that. You literally refill your bottle, pop it on to that plug, and push it in. That's it. I can literally take the bottle out of this, refill it, and have it back in the device in less than 10 seconds. It's a great bottle system. I love the bottle system. I loved it on the original one, and it's still great in this one. I'd like to see a lot more manufacturers taking that bottle system on, if I'm entirely honest. I've changed out the bottle, which you'll have noticed there, for one of the super soft bottles that we're used to with most of the Italian squants these days. It's just a much nicer bottle for me to use. I tend to put them in everything, as indeed, I don't know if you noticed, I put one in there as well. Batteries, same kind of system as the cuboid, if you've seen one of those. So it's on a little spring-loaded plate. Your two batteries go in there. They go in series. So one is positive down, one is negative down. It's printed on this plate, just sort of imprinted in the plate there above the terminals. I don't know if I'm going to show you that on camera. Pop her up, and she's ready to go. So the 510 on this is basically the same as the one on the original Dripbox. Now, I probably should have done this before I got to the camera. I'm not entirely sure whether or not it's spring-loaded, and I don't have anything here to test with. I'll have a look later at some point. I'll pop that in the comments. Now, it comes with the Kanger bottom-fed RDA, which we all wrote off instantly on the original Dripbox as being crap. And it is, except the new version comes with extremely tight O-rings. There we go. So the new version comes with a velocity style post deck. The original was, you know, just your normal two-post screw design. Now, these are exactly the same. They screw into the deck of the Atty so that they can just be pre-made, changed. You know, you can buy them from a shop. You don't have to mess around with rebuilding if you don't want to. I guess that's where they get the starter kit bit from. The coils in here look like utter crap, to be honest. I'd call them spaced Claptons, but that would be implying that they're supposed to look like that, and I really don't know if they are. They're not even, they're all over the bloody place. But they came pre-wicked, so I put a bit of juice in and I gave them a go. Surprisingly, at the, one second, it would appear that it doesn't want to squonk. Yeah, so that was my fault. I hadn't seated the bottle quite correctly, and it's now squonking away like a champ. The one thing that I do really like about these atties is the amount of holes in the base of the deck. Squonking is super easy. You can really pack your cotton into the atty there, and the juice comes at it from all angles and ensures that it's all, you know, really nice and wet. Now, with that velocity post system in there, that I would guess has, you know, ever so slightly reduced the chamber on this. So with the airflow wide open and the power, I mean, I don't know, let's put it to 100 watts. Here's my biggest pet hate. So that's still reading at 0.13, which is the resistance of this, not this. Now, I found this, first time I changed the atomizer, I thought that maybe I had an issue with my mod, so I swapped it for another one in the shop, and had exactly the same issue. So what should happen is, like every other board in the world, it should sense that there's a new coil and it should reread the resistance. But it doesn't. So what you have to do is unscrew your atty until it reads 9.99, so that it shows you that it's not registering the coil. And then you press and hold the power button and it will say check atomizer. Then you can screw your atty back down, press the power button again, and it will come up new coil. Up for yes, and then it will change and tell me that yes, it's 0.32 in this build, not 0.13. Really irritating. If any of you guys don't do this, and they just come straight up and ask you if you've got a new coil, please leave a comment, let me know. But I've been through 3 of these, and every single one that I tried did the same thing. So who knows, maybe it's a bad batch, maybe it's just an issue with these boards, who knows. But let's be realistic, guys, we're talking, what, anywhere between sort of 45, 65 quid for these, depending, you know, whether you're online, whether you're getting from a bricks and mortar. It's good value, and you can live with a couple of niggles. So let's have a go with the airflow wide open on the crap Kangertech RDA. $100 watts isn't enough, which obviously will put some of you guys off straight away. I mean, the build that they've got in there, that 0.32 spaced Clapton build, it's no use for this mouth to lung hole that they've put on here. That's not enough airflow for that build. Fact. You know, you're probably choke trying to take a vape on it. So that doesn't really work, but $125 watts is getting better. Good old squonk. One good thing about having these top level airflow holes is that it's not, twist that cap a bit, get the airflow bang on the coils. The good thing about that is that you can really get a good squonk in there, get a good amount of juice on that wick, and it's not going to leak. Certainly not with the 3 O-rings that, you know, I'm not going to hang off of that. It's really quite tough to get the top cap off at the minute, but that's, you know, I'm not using it really. I just sort of put it on here to show you guys. So I'd imagine that will break in a little bit with use. At 140 watts, the flavour on that is as good as the flavour on that. Make of that what you will, because I think really at this sort of point what you're effectively doing, it doesn't really matter what the RDA is on top. It doesn't matter how open it is, how closed it is, how good the airflow system is. At 140, 160 watts, effectively you're just vaporizing the juice and it's going straight in your mouth. It's not really, you don't have to have the best airflow system in the world for 160 watts to work. So 160 watts. I mean, you can see, sorry, the vapor that it chucks out is loads. It will satisfy the cloud chaser types. The flavour for a cloudy, 160 watt vape is all right. It's no worse or no better, like I say, than something like the Hastur, or pretty much, I guess, any device, at that power. Yeah, there's some that will give you more flavour at that sort of wattage. How you sort of measure that, I don't really know. But it's decent enough, guys. The issue on the original Dripbox was that it put out 3.7 volts. So you couldn't build safely to a resistance that would make that chuck like that and actually make use of, I guess, what that ATI was designed for. It was designed for, a bigger, lower resistance build than the 0.3s, 0.2s that they came with. I don't really know what they were thinking with that. But anyway, if you're, a cloud chaser type and you're looking at squonking, you want to get into squonking for a first device or something like this is probably on your radar. And I think, to be fair, that ATI will do absolutely fine. But let's get rid of it. And let's have a look at the Tsunami. So that is the Tsunami RDA. This is a glass chuff cap, which a friend of mine gave me. It's designed to be used on the Kennedy series, but since these use the same airflow, they actually fit as well. So, velocity style deck. And as you can see, I've gone really OTT with this one, and I've thrown in a 4mm ID 7 wrap each side immolation wire build. Now that ohms out at, got to reset my ATI, reset my mod, sorry, to read the new ATI. But I already know that is going to come out at about 0.13. There we go. You can make that out, 0.13. So that's the Tsunami, that's what it looks like, that's how it comes. You get a selection of different drip tips. You can run it in dual airflow, or you can see there it's just blocked off by the base, you get a single airflow slot as well. So you can run this in dual or single airflow, and you can put pretty much whatever kind of build you want in there. Now you can shut off the airflow by twisting this around so that you only have, a third or a half or 2/3 of that hole exposed. So you can put, a less mental build in it than what I put in it. I've done it really just to sort of put it through its paces and see what it can do. It's a really good ATI, actually, especially for the Laria builds. It's basically taken the velocity style deck, the Kennedy style airflow, merged those two together, and they've come up with a decent atomizer, to be fair. I'll take this drip tip out. You can see that despite the fact that it looks sort of reasonably large, you look inside the top there, you see the velocity post literally sit directly underneath the top cap. So that means it's got quite a reduced chamber for an ATI, of this size. So you don't need to belt 160 watts through this one to get a decent flavour. So I'm going to knock this back down to, you know, to 100 watts. Give her a little squonk. And the flavour out of that is every bit as good as the flavour out of that, or the flavour out of that, with an extra 60 watts through it. So it's definitely a better atomizer than the one that comes stock, and it's definitely better than others of around the same price. I would say that this absolutely knocks the spots off the Hastur. And these are 20 something quid online, or even in most shops. Now you can get these from Vapor Z. These don't come as standard. The 22 certainly don't come as standard with a bottom fed pin. But Vapor Z have a stock of bottom fed pins for these. So if you need a bottom fed pin, that's where you go. Now I think for the money, for the extra couple of quid for the bottom fed pin, you know, the Tsunami is a great Atty in terms of flavour, in terms of vapour production, ease of build on that velocity style deck. You know, it's hard to fault it in all areas except one, and that is how it squonks. So I'm going to put the glass cap on so you can see what's going on here, and I'm going to try not to soak my laptop in the process of doing this. But I don't know if you can quite make out. Let's see if it will focus on that a bit. See those dark circles underneath my coil? Let's see if it helps with that off. There you go. So those circular tubes under the coils is the airflow. Directly in the middle there, you can see the squonk hole. Now I would say at best there's about a mil and a half between the squonk hole and the tops of the airflow. So what inevitably happens is you forget that you're using the Tsunami and that it's bottom airflow, and you give it a good old squonk. And then what happens is that immediately your juice just pisses out of the airflow. Pisses out. I've got a couple of drops on my end, but you can see it's all around the base of that because I've had it upside down, and it's, you know, it's everywhere. So it can get quite messy. It's also because of the way those tubes come up in the deck. There isn't a massive amount of room for your wicks. So if you do like I've done and put quite a large build in this, you need somewhere to be able to put that wick. And you put that wick down the side of the airflow holes, and effectively what you do is you leave really little room for the liquid to move around anywhere but hitting your cotton or going down the air holes. It's a shame because otherwise it's almost perfect, you know, for the price point and for the features and the capability that it has. It's almost there. It's almost, you know, faultless, except for that, and that's quite a big niggle for me. I tend to prefer Atties that don't piss liquid out of the airflow. It's not to say it doesn't happen on other Atties and much more expensive ones, but I think this is slightly more prone to it just by its nature. So the way that the build deck's laid out, it's designed for those big Larry builds, and as soon as you put a big Larry build in, you magnify the problem. If you're going to run, you know, like sort of half an ohm, 2.5 mil ID coils, and be really careful with placing your wicks, it'll be less of an issue, but that issue is still there. So just, you know, to make you aware. But I don't really want to knock it because it's actually a decent RDA. Now, a couple of things that have been picked up on this. So the first question obviously is battery life, and like I said with the Halcyon, it's kind of an unfair question because it depends on what wattage you're setting it at, what build you've got in there, and how you vape. If you're on it all day every day like myself, your battery's not going to last you as long as if you're a you know, if you work in an office and you get 2 15-minute breaks in an 8-hour period, you know, your batteries are going to be there all day, all night, and you're going to put them on charge overnight, and that's going to be that. If you're out and you're driving around, or you're working out in the open and you're vaping all the time, the batteries aren't going to last you that long. Certainly not at 100 plus watts. Now, the other thing about batteries that's been raised by somebody on UKS is that this battery gauge on the side here, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slots. So you would think, 20, 20, 20, 20%. And that when you get to the bottom there, the batteries would be very close to being dead. But what this chap has found is that actually if you take the batteries out and then put them into another dual series box, they're actually reading as having sort of half-life left in them. They're up at the sort of 3.8 mark. Now, mine isn't quite that bad. I took my batteries out this morning on 1 bar and they were reading at 3.66 volts. So a total of what, 7.32 or something like that. Now, I think that's a combination of things. I think one, the battery, the battery monitoring side of the chipset perhaps isn't that accurate. But I think secondly, it also has to do with the board. Just because you have another twin battery series box doesn't mean that the input voltages for those chipsets are the same. So this may require a minimum of 7.3 volts for that board to work effectively to be able to put out its maximum power of 160 watts. You put those into another dual series box, that one might only require 6.5 volts of input power for the processor to do its job and put out its maximum power. I can't say with any certainty because I'm not clever enough to, take the board out and to test the board and to do all of that sort of stuff. And to be honest, I don't find it a big enough issue for it to really bother me, for me to go to the lengths of, for instance, emailing Kangertech and asking for the board specifications and asking for how it monitors battery percentages and stuff like that. Once it hits 1 bar, it still works for an incredibly long amount of time, even at high wattage. So for me, it's not a massive issue. I'm the kind of person that when I go out with a Core Master kit bag, and I've generally got at least 4 or 5 setups in there. I've got spare batteries for every setup. I've got spare juice. I've got everything with me. Sounds a bit retentive, doesn't it? I had a couple of issues years ago where I'd go out for the day and something had run out, my batteries had died, or I'd burn out a coil or something, and I didn't used to carry spares. And inevitably what happened in those situations was that if I couldn't get to somebody or somewhere where I could buy replacement bits or do something to make it work, if I was stuck away from home working away, the easiest answer for me to get my nicotine fix was, of course, the old-fashioned one. I'd go and buy a packet of smokes, and you think, I'll just have, I'll have a couple, and then I'll get home and I'll put my batteries in, but then you get home and you think, I've got a couple of smokes left, and you end up smoking again for a couple of days, a week, a month. Before you know it, you're not vaping anymore, and you're back in that vicious circle. And you know what? I've been there before, and it won't happen to me again. So yeah, I may be a little bit over-prepared most times, but I'd rather that than smoke. So the battery thing, it's not a massive issue for me personally. But if you guys have got the same issue, or if yours isn't like that at all, leave a comment below, let us know, and if we get enough sort of interest in that side of it, then maybe I will look at it further. So anyway, that briefly was the Kangertech Dripbox 160 and the Tsunami. Now, last but not least, I have one more setup that I just want to have a quick look at with you guys on camera. I'm massively happy with this. Ryan Dorr, the guy that does the ham squonk, I said on the last video he does some other bits and bobs, and I had one being made, and I was really excited. Well, it turned up this week, and it is every bit as beautiful as I was hoping it was going to be. If you're on UKS, you will have seen I posted up a couple of pictures on there. So this is I'm led to believe a 6,000-year-old piece of bog oak, which is an incredibly tough wood to work, inlaid with this gorgeous sort of claret red, slightly metallic resin. Copper switch, copper top plate, brass battery tube. Now this is an unregulated MOSFET mod, and it's lovely. Now this will shock you. After seeing me bake those three, have a look at this. See, I can and do vape normally. No offense if all you ever do is chuck clouds, but it's not me. So this is a single 18650. Everything's handmade by Ryan, hand finished. It's a beautiful little mod. The attention to detail on it is fantastic. You know, all the edges are rounded off by hand, and they're all really bloody good. Little copper switch there to match the copper top plate, which is a lovely little touch. Now, the bottle system that comes with this is the only gripe that I've had with it in any way, shape or form, and I've had a chat with Ryan and we think we've got a way around it, so we're all good. I just need to point out as well that before I say anything about this, the bottle system in this, Ryan did explain to me that it was more of an issue with my one in particular. Now the reason for that is that when this was taken from being a block of, you know, prepared hybrid wood, and it was drilled and shaped, what actually happened is that the resin hadn't taken perfectly during the casting process. So we ended up with a big old hole in the wood, which was devastating to say the least, because I was so looking forward to this. But Ryan sent it back. We had that hole re-resined, and you know, it's come back as good as new, near as damn it as good as new. I'm absolutely over the moon with the mod and the way it looks and everything else. But because there were, you know, the bog oak is so bloody hard to work. It's a real tough wood, and because it had been made, you know, so thin in places, and because there was already an issue where we knew that the resin hadn't taken properly in one area, this hole here, it's actually nicely all beveled in and everything else. I'm not sure how well you'll see all that bevel in there, but this hole for the bottle is incredibly snug. Now the reason for that is because Ryan wanted to take out the absolute bare minimum of material to ensure that we didn't have any further problems. But what that has done is made this bottle hole is quite snug. Now originally these come with a, I've just pulled that out. That wasn't what I wanted to show you. So these come with a Fat Daddy Vapes bottom fed pin, and the pin sits at roughly sort of that height. So they're on with a joiner piece of tubing and then an extended squonk pin. Problem with that, on the original bottle is a Fat Daddy Vapes squonk bottle. Bear me 1 second, sorry, I should have grabbed this out first, but I will just show you what that looks like. If I can find the top cap for it. There we go. So, do you like my pyjamas? As a treat. Told you I was a geek. I've even got comic book pyjamas. Right, so that's the Fat Daddy Vapes bottle. So it's good old juice capacity. You know, it's a great size, and effectively, this sort of rubber washer sits inside the cap. The bottle screws on, which holds that washer in place. See the little hole there? There you go. So then what happens is your tube goes into that rubber washer, and the rubber washer keeps it nice and secure. Problem is, because mine was so snug, I was having to really sort of yank on it. And what I did was exactly what I just did on camera there, and I actually pulled that piece off. So I've had to go back in, redo it, and it's just happened again now on camera. The thing is, because this is designed to obviously sit inside here, and my fingers are bigger than that hole, it's a fiddly little bugger for me to get back on. I'm not going to try and do it on camera because it will take ages. But like I say, I've had a chat with Ryan, and I believe that we have a solution in place for that. So not worried about that at all. It's gorgeous. It is absolutely lovely. It's everything that I wanted it to be. It delivers the power nicely. It's, you know, it's brilliant. I love it. You might be able to tell. It is a stay-at-home sort of showpiece mod for me. And to think that this costs, you know, a third of another, you know, for example, like a high-end stabilized wood mod from Italy, it's phenomenal. The price versus quality, you know, the quality is exceptional for the amount of money that one of these costs. General price for something like this is around the 135, 145 mark. Now, this piece of wood, because this was a significantly more expensive block of wood, cost me an extra 35 quid, I think it was, something like that. So I think it's cost me about 170 all in, or something around that. Bargain, to be honest. So much so that I've already asked him to make me another one. So the next one's going to be a 26650, made to my specs to suit the nopity S, and I'm going to use one of the not so ugly reducer rings on there with a little brass tip. You know, literally having a mod made to suit an Atty, because I love the Atty that much, and the mods are extremely pretty. So I said to him I'd know when I saw the right piece of wood, and a couple of days later he posted up a picture on his group, and I said, yep, that's the one. So that is now all ready to go in place once he gets through his massive list of other people. If you haven't checked out his Facebook group, I will pop the link in the description, or in the comments section, description section below. Go and check him out, guys. Have a look, because he does some really fantastic stuff. So that is mods. I'm just going to finish off with the nopity S. Now, in the review that I did of the nopity, you saw I chucked in like a 0.2 or something dual Clapton build in there. And that's how I, love to run the original nopity. It's really airy, the way the airflow worked in there. It was perfect for a set of sort of bigger dual coils, and to really start pushing some power through. Works fantastically. Now the nopity S is every bit as good. I find personally that the airflow is just slightly restricted in comparison to the original nopity. I don't know if that's as a result of positioning the coils. One of the main considerations with this was to bring the airflow holes, instead of being like this, to bring them around like this, so that when your single coil went in, you've got that airflow all around the coil. Now I'm not sure if that means that when you put a larger set of joules in, actually you sort of block a little bit that airflow, and maybe that's why it feels just a touch restricted. Either way, still a fantastic vape. I've run stupid builds in this, and I have now put in a bog standard 2.5mm ID single coil. It's like 6 or 7 reps of 0.32 coming in at around about an ohm. Crazy, huh? Haven't seen me vape anything like that for a while. So, gone for the original nopity cap, and I've just popped on a 510 drip tip using the drip tip adapter that Andrea kindly sent me. And I think it looks Beautiful. And it looks absolutely lovely. And I've specifically got this tip so that when I have a mod with a larger base, I can use the brass, not so ugly beauty ring with the brass top, with the stainless cap. I think it's going to look beautiful. But yeah, so for those of you that were maybe concerned that the nopity was going to be a bit leery for you, it certainly wouldn't have been anyway, because you've got all the multiple airflow selections. But I think with the way they've redesigned the airflow in this, it's suited even more so now to a sensible sort of single coil setup. You know, you don't have to go quite as basic and boring as I've done with this one. I think the flavour would be phenomenal with like a point, I don't know, 0.6, 0.7 ohm, 0.4 Campbell build in there, something like that. Or maybe I'll give it a go later on today. But even with that, with the airflow on its largest setting, with a 1 ohm coil, the flavour is really good. Can't fault it. Really can't fault it. So yeah, that was pretty much my last couple of weeks in bait mail, I guess. Hope that has given you guys some sort of insight. If there's anything that you specifically want to see me cover first out of those, like I say, just pop it in the comments below, guys, and I will try and get around to it as soon as possible. Real life is sort of getting in the way at the moment, so I'm reduced to waffling on camera for, well, it's got to be a good 25 minutes or so, I guess. I'll try and put some timing markers into the description. I don't know why I'm telling you this now, because if I've done it, you'll have already seen it. But yes, I'll try and get that in there, make things a little bit easier for you. Anyway, I hope you guys are well. Get yourselves over to UKS. Let us know what you get, how you're getting on with these things, and if you've got any questions, queries, anything you want to see, pop it in the comments below, guys, and I'll get on it as soon as possible. Laters.